Eileo guys, and welcome back. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the top 5 very useful astromon that you guys all should have. Now, part of this video is geared towards beginners, but also once we get deeper into the video, you'll see that this pretty much goes for all players out there. And a very good part about this list too is that 4 out of 5 of these astromon are definitely farmable. Everyone can obtain them, and while different versions of them exist, aka better versions of them, if a mon is farmable and accessible to everyone, I think that's a plus regardless of where you may be at in the game. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, so the 5th summon on my list here is going to be none other than Jormungandr, because as a newer player you do have access to him as part of the selective summons in the game. So your goal as a new player is just to get the core mons that you need to help you kind of progress through the content, so you can kind of spread your wings and really get into the thick of it here. So if possible, I would try and reroll the selective summon process until you get a variant. No, I said variant Jormungandr. I don't have a variant Jormungandr because the time my account came around, it wasn't available for the selective summon, so I ended up choosing something else that was variant. But in this particular case, go with Jormungandr, who's a variant, and I'll explain it to you why. Because he has a lovely discernment lead, and what discernment does is it decreases the enemy's resistance by 20%. Having him in that leader slot skill is going to be super useful for a place like golems, where sap is basically king after you hit B8, because you want to get those saps off, you want to get them sticking, and pairing him up with another unit like water sea star, for example, already takes care of your sappers. Now, I'm not going to say right here that he's the best sapper in the world, because as we can see right here, mine is on a protection set and he's rocking HP attack, and he's only at Evo 2, but it's enough to get your job done, and it's enough to get your toes wet when you literally just started the game. And the best part is that as you grow and get your team better and better, you can keep him in that first slot for golems until you can replace him with something else. But having Jormungandr and Water Sea Star as your 2 sappers at the beginning of the game already takes care of your B10 team. Already. I mean, you already have 2 of your sappers out the way, you can then focus on your wave clearers. And alright, so as you guys can see here too, instead of me just telling you guys what you should build and why you should build those astromon, let's go and see how Jormungandr holds up in B10, just so that you know what I say is opinion, but you can also take it as fact. Alright, so I try to emulate this as much as possible as like being a beginner player trying to perhaps clear out B10 here with my Dark Mona, who's only at Evo 3. She's not super evoed or anything, and I do have an Evo 3 Wood Anu too. And once again, he's not super evoed either. So this team is realistic, though it may take a little bit of time here, but that's okay. I mean, part of MSL is investing in time, and we're just showing this squad off to get through this content right here. Showing you that Jormungandr isn't the best investment in the world, but if you literally just installed the game today, I think he's a really good pick, especially, as I said before, if you can select him during these selective summons and get him variant with that discernment lead here, then you can drop Sea Star out of here and, you know, just have her as another slot in there, because the discernment helps the golem right there who just popped up with his resistance not do that. The more sap stacks that you have on that golem, the quicker he's going to die, and that's it. Like, for instance, if I had the discernment lead, I do believe that my saps would have stuck and we wouldn't have seen this animation whatsoever. So it would have made this a lot smoother. And I mean, that's his predominant use here of just helping you to clear out golems B10 and get your gem game up so you can kind of progress elsewhere in the game. And then coming in hot right after Jormungandr, number 4 on this list, I'm sure you guys have guessed it if you've been playing this game for a bit of time here, is going to be none other than Water Persephone. Now, Water Persephone is also a mon that is available on the selective summons, but I personally just don't recommend you going for that here, because once you get your gem game up, you won't necessarily need her for the type of content that you think you need her for. So once you begin PvE, for example, it may be an issue because of your gems being trash, where you need heals or you need a passive healer to kind of get through content. But once you hit golems B10 and start effectively farming that and getting your main squad up, she's going to drop off and kind of come back a little bit later in the game, more so in a PvP situation right here. So just a quick synopsis on her too. Basically build mine with all kinds of HP, just showing off the little gems here. She has HP gem, another HP gem, and another HP gem. She has high resistance. It's not max, but it is pretty high right there. And once again, her main job is just being a passive healer for your team. So while I find that Perse is very useful in the beginning stages of the game, there's a big chunk of the game I feel like she kind of just disappears, and then she may pop up a little bit later in terms of PvP, especially if you can get her super evolution. So don't necessarily feel like you have to choose her for your selective summon. I personally would recommend Jormungandr, especially with his lead over Water Perse, but if you want to go the Water Perse route too, then that's by all means fine. You know, it's a video game at the end of the day here. But before you decide to do that, I do want to show you guys a little secret about Water Perse outside of using her, just so you can see what she does. That kind of makes it a little bit unnecessary in my opinion. Just one man's opinion right here, and that's going to be her dungeon. And with Perse's Heroes dungeon, here you can come and farm her out as soon as you get your squad built up. Now I'm not saying this is easy or extremely accessible for players because you just began the game, but if you're hitting B10 within a couple weeks, maybe even a week of playing the game, and you get your gym game up here, the nice part about this is that you can go ahead, slide in that Water Sea Star, you can slide in that variant Jormungandr into your squad, take a couple wave clearers with you like Dark Mona. Congratulations, you can now at least farm the first stage of this Perse dungeon and get her shards together. And once you get the maximum soul stones for her, then you can summon her and you now have an Evo 1 Perse. And so while it is a bit of a delay for you, I think it's a good delay because it gives you time to really focus on your core set of units and get those mons leveled up, gemmed up, and skill booked up. Because if you have all of these Nat5s laying around at the beginning of the game, well, there's not much you can do because you don't have the resources to do it. But let's head over here to a story stage and I'll show you guys exactly what she does, just in case you're curious. If I can find her, which there is that lovely search method that I should be taking more advantage of. Alright, so what makes Water Perse so appealing, like I said before, if DPS is a problem, is due to her passive heal. So what happens here is, say for instance my Mona attacks. You know, we have Draka attacking. Now these guys really aren't going to do any damage to my astromon because they are level 60 and Evo 3 and stuff of that nature. But let's say for instance Dark Gilga got hit like a butt cheek on a stick here and he's at half health. You know, just use the power of your imagination here. But the nice part about Water Perse is that if you use her passive skill, which is her 3-star skill, you get this effect. So if you saw that right there, what happened was, once my Perse's move connected with the astromon, she healed up the entire squad. They all received nearly 10,000 HP back to their health, which is great for sustainment, and it's an easy way to get heals off every single turn without you having to dedicate an entire turn, like a mon like Water Siren for example, of getting her SP bar up full and then healing the squad when it's too late. So this is a very easy way to basically heal your squad up and top them up depending on what content that you're doing without sacrificing that build up of getting that SP bar up. And that's the main selling point of Water Perse. You can use her in PvP, especially later on in the game, because of her tankiness and her ability to passive heal the squad and also petrification here. But I do think she is a very good pick as the 4th astromon on my own personal list. Alright, so coming in third on my own personal list here is going to be Sun Wukong, and while he isn't super useful as you literally just began the game, over time his use just becomes a lot bigger and a lot more apparent as you kind of progress through the game and open up other avenues of content like fighting Colossus for example. And I also use my Sun Wukong in the Dimensional Dungeon just to help clear stuff out here. And now you may be saying, okay, I just began the game, how is this useful for me? Like I said before, it takes time. He's not an astromon that if you get him immediately is going to be immediately useful. He's an astromon that once you progress later on into the game and unlock more stuff, we get a lot more uses out of him. And that's because not only does he have a debuff skill called Defense Down, which helps to lower the astromon that you're fighting's defense, but he also has Courageous Strike. So a very good thing about this astromon is he can not only debuff whatever that you're fighting, but he can also hit them like a butt cheek on a stick. Now Courageous Strike does scale off the maximum HP of whatever monster that you're fighting, so if you're using him on like regular mobs like in Pagos Coast or Pagos Coast Extreme, nothing's really going to happen to them. But if you slide him over there to Titans, if you slide him over there to Colossus, then he's going to do a whole bunch of damage there. And while he isn't going to be like a necessary carry throughout Colossus, or Titans, he is a great astromon to have just there on the slot that kind of help you progress through that content until you get more astromon like Fire Shinobi, for example, to kind of pair up with him and get the most bang for your buck here. And by the way, mine is over here on a ruined set. You don't have to have a complete set once you begin the game. Try and aim for a broken set with similar like substats as to what I have here, and slowly transition it over to a complete set if you can. However, just don't compromise, because you don't want to compromise. It never looks good at all. And we have his hero dungeon pulled up over here, and you should be familiar with the hero's dungeon, because if you're farming out Perse, then your next goal, in my opinion, should be farming out Sun Wukong to go ahead and summon him, get him to Evo 2 in the future once you can. Make sure you like get his gems nice and spicy, because you're going to take this bad boy over here, and you know, you're going to need a decent team to kind of clear out content, but you can slide over here to Colossus and hopefully give him a whooping. And by whooping, I'm referring to Wood Colossus. You can also take him into probably Dark Colossus and Light Colossus as well, just as a DPS. But as long as you can keep your Fire Wukong alive, you won't have any issues really clearing out that content, as long as your other astromon are up to par as well. Alright, and then the second astromon on this list here is going to be none other than Light Emperato. So Light Emperato is more so of a mid-game, kind of late game-ish type astromon, so he's not readily available to newbies here. And mine is in the progress of being built, but especially if you're coming from an area where you weren't part of the whole Light Perse Primo Festival, where everyone and their moms now have dark and light purses here, this is the next best thing, because he is farmable. He does take time to farm out, but if you've been following my guides and you've subscribed to the YouTube channel, over time you're going to have your mons geared up so you can do high damage in World Boss and get this dude as soon as possible and hopefully get him to Evo 3. So what makes him so appealing though? So he comes in with Battle Rush and Shock. So what Shock does is basically crowd control, aka it prevents the enemy from acting, and it also lowers their defense slightly. So if you've ever fought an astromon like Light Yuki, for example, she has double shock, and if she hits, well, if your resistance is very low, and also depending on what type of lead that she has, then there's a chance that your astromon will just sit there until they pass away. So that's very nice to have, especially if you're trying to get into PvP, because the higher grade your astromon is, then the better your progress will be with that. So he's useful not only in a PvP situation, regardless if you want to use him more so as a offensive mon or defensive mon, even though he's a defender. It just really depends on what type of team composition that you're running. But you can also use him in a place like the Elemental Tower of Chaos, where you can you can shock the mons that you're fighting to help you progress through the tower, you know, just a little bit better, or a little bit more efficiently, shall I say. And then taking a look at mine in terms of his gem set right here, he's in an awkward stage at this point in time. He has an HP gem on him. He's also rocking a crit rate gem and also an attack gem. So my goal is just to get a pugilist set out for him to help him kind of spam not only the shock, but also to kind of add in some stunning up in there too, if I'm lucky. Now he isn't farmable from the hero's dungeon like the prior two astromon were. He's farmable from the lovely world boss, which you will unlock a little bit later in your adventure. And if you're looking at this guide now and you already have it unlocked, well, hopefully you're working towards that Light Emperato. But we would come over here, we can use our 3 swords, and the goal of this is just to go ahead and do like a little quick time event and get as high a score as possible using the astromon that we have. The light and dark astromon especially do a lot more damage too, so having basically an entire squad of high gem quality astromon and Evo 3 in variant if possible is the best way to kind of net you points. But we can slide over here and see our rewards depending on where we are at in terms of our ranking, and we can also see the lovely Emperato shards. So it does stack up over time, and this isn't something that you'll get overnight, because World Boss I believe happens like every 14 days or something like that. Don't quote me on it, even though it is beginning here soon. But yeah, you get those lovely shards, and you also can come over here to the shop and buy lovely things as well, which I'm sitting at 4K and I haven't touched these at all. So I do have a problem there. But right before we get to the first astromon on my list here, I wanted to show you guys a quick example of Light Emperato in PvP. As stated before, you can use him offensively or defensively. In this scenario or this example, I'm kind of using him offensively. But there's also the lovely water Perse over here. we just met her and she's here hanging out on this defensive team, and hopefully I can get this to work here. So the main selling point about Light Emperato is we'll see literally with this hit of how he can not only heal himself but also get his SP bar going. So I'm going to aim for Dark Yuki because I get elemental advantage here. So his SP went up and he also healed himself, though he didn't take much damage here. And then we're going to go ahead and see if we can get that filled a little bit faster for you guys. Alright, so his SP bar is now full, and depending on the resistance of the astronaut you're fighting here, this could either stick or get resisted, but we're just going to go ahead and run the gauntlet here and hopefully it sticks. And nope, all three of them got resisted because this is more so higher level PvP, so these astromon naturally have higher resistance, and in this case, if you are brave enough to use a woody Jormungandr, then that discernment lead would be helpful in this scenario. Obviously not optimal, but it would be helpful. But yeah, basically what would happen would be the shock would go off and kind of stick to these astromon, and then they couldn't act whatsoever here. Alright, so hopefully this example will finally work here. So we're going to go ahead and do his 5-star skill. And he passed away, but this is what happens when Light Emperato can get his freaking skill to actually stick. This is the shock state, so this baby girl cannot move for 2 turns. So she is literally free to get whomped on, she is literally free to get smacked down and do all kinds of damage, and hopefully take her out before those 2 turns are up, which is very useful in situations where you're fighting astromon like the lovely Dark Wildfang that I have here, and also Dark Cupid or Dark Hana too, because not only can they put up shields, but these astromon are naturally tanky AF, and you just don't want to do that. It's just a bad time in general here. And then, ladies and gentlemen, to no surprise to anyone, is going to have to be Fire Draka. The amazing part about Fire Draka is ever since her introduction into the game, she has been literally a staple for like 90% of the content in this game. Because if you sacrifice enough Nat5s during her Rebirth Festival, which comes around, every X amount of months with the other Nat5s that are on rotation, which is going to be Griffin and Mr. C, or Sir Nunos, I probably slaughtered his name here, you get access to one of the most game-breaking astromon ever. Fire Draka is not only a wave clearer, but one of the best wave clearers that is accessible to all players. Literally all the astromon on this list is accessible to all players and can be substituted with other ones if you pull a better version of them, or in some cases like Water Purse, a great value version of them. But let's go and take a quick look at my Fire Draka here. She is on a Siphon set. She's rocking 95% crit rate. Her attack stat could be a little bit higher, but the main selling point about her is getting that SP off super quickly here, which due to her kit, she has morale boost, which gives SP to not only herself, but also all allies. And then we have the moneymaker, which is Puncture. So if you read right here, what Puncture does is it ignores 100% of the enemy's base defense. Base defense, not meaning if they have gems equipped. So in a PvP situation, especially with trinkets involved and enhancements, etc., it's not as effective as it was before. But in terms of PvE, this is an actual just game stomper. So let me stop talking and let me do something better and just show you. Alright, so this is my setup right here. I'm rocking 3 wave clearers, and one of those wave clearers is none other than Fire Draka herself. And I also have an astromon that I'm leveling here, because due to MSL's leveling up system, if you have one astromon, all the experience that your other astromon would have gathered gets kind of like honed in on that one astromon, making it just a lot more effective of leveling up that one astromon versus trying to level up a whole bunch of them. But here's where we get to see how the Siphon set kind of takes hold of Fire Draka and just makes her an absolute beast here. So I'm going to go ahead and have her attack, and look at that. Literally with 1 kill, she is almost at maximum SP. You guys know, especially if you just began the game, how slow it is, especially in the beginning, to kind of get your SP gauge up, and that was literally 1 kill and we are already packing and stacking. And looks like Gilgamesh might beat out lovely Fire Draka. I mean, that's no surprise. He's the Dark Astromon, and he also has Battle Rush. But, yeah. I do believe mine is on the Siphon set too here, but here's where things get spicy. So even though these guys are level 66, and, once you get deeper into the game, these stages get higher, with the lovely benefit of Puncture,
that's a lot of damage,
they pass away. This basically goes for any stage in the game if you have your Evo 2 or Evo 3 Fire Draka. She is not only useful just in like farming out stages, but you can bring her into Golems as a dedicated wave clearer. You can bring her into freaking Colossus as like a counter towards Water Colossus, which is what I do just because it kind of saves time. And yeah, that pretty much sums up Fire Draka here. I mean, you can just see her just destroy everything, even though these guys are weaker mobs. She is a big staple in terms of my wave clearing team for not only my secondary account, which is what you guys see here, but also my main account, because once again, this astromon, just like literally every other astromon that I have indicated on this list, is farmable in some shape or way, or there's a better substitute or an equal substitute to the astromon here. So hopefully this list helped you guys, and I tried to do my best to kind of show you guys a little bit of what that astromon does. That way you can kind of not only, you know, learn from me telling you something, but also visually showing you something here. Now, mons like Fire Draka or like Emperato don't come, like they don't like literally fall into your lap as you begin the game. So it does take some time investment here, but one of the greatest parts about MSL is that as long as you invest time, you don't have to necessarily invest money, but as long as you give time to the game, you can have your lovely Fire Draka just like I have right here, clearing out waves for you, leveling up astromon super duper quickly, and just stopping on content with all the other players out there. Alright, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the list there. I tried to do it in a little bit different format to kind of show you guys more than tell you, because I know that I do that a lot. So if you like that format, feel free to let me know in the comments below. In concerns to like Woody Jormungandr as well, he's not necessary, but it is nice if you just literally began the game to have him to go through that process. But you know, everything else on this list can be replaced with other mons in most cases. And yeah, that's pretty much it. See ya.